everyone now looking at it would agree that if you didn't want to ever buy Beyondculation Improved, that's fine. It's kind of expensive. It's kind of a Cadillac at averaging over $110 a month retail price. It's not cheap. Whereas you could buy some vitamin D, and you could get your folic acid and buy an omega-3 and get some lutein. But I'm only mentioning these in the broader context of having you know that all of us face health care costs, whether or not Obamacare works out or not, whether you pay for it out of your pocket or your fellow taxpayer is paying for it, we will incur health care costs. And I think it's really important to tell people that we know that I can save you $16 billion just by bringing your vitamin D level up to realistic levels, which today for an adult is around 5,000. So I'm not claiming that BCI, my calling card, is the end-all and be-all. It is the foundation, because with it, I provably alter the likelihood of you dying of a blood clot because of things like the omega-3 or an arrhythmia. And we have in it this key thing, the omega-3. And we do know that I have in it some of these carotenoids, the lutein and zeaxanthin, not again in the high enough quantities that some people facing macular degeneration would benefit from, but I'm giving small amounts of everything to help the average person stay out of trouble. And just folic acid is of course in there, but today we now know that there's an advanced form of folic acid for those of you that are worried about losing your memory or that are worried about optimizing your health. Now, we can't optimize our health unless we realize that when you were born, you are toxic. And I will make that very clear to you today. When you go to my website, it will say at the bottom, watch the CNN special on Toxic America. And when you watch that, there will be no question, every man, woman, and child, and your pets, because our dogs are all dying of cancer, that we can do something. So whether you're worried now about diabetes or you're worried about cancer or asthma, ADD, always know that the whole formula that I'm teaching you is that I can put good things in. We can all choose better food. We could meet an organic farmer. We could get to the point that everything was organic. We could do a lot. But if I take the bad stuff out, and you are born, as you will see when you watch the CNN special on my website, you will have no doubt as to exactly how many toxins you were born with. Because there isn't anyone who's born with less than 1,000 times more lead in your bone than we had a few hundred years ago. So the CNN special, Toxic America, explains to you that we can measure today for a check of about $5,000. We can take 20 tubes of your blood, and we can tell you exactly how much carcinogen, neurotoxin, endocrine disruptor. And this is what we find, because what we did is we had the environmental working group, a group of concerned citizens wrote out the check to take the blood when 10 children were picked at random one day in America. And the cord blood was, instead of being discarded with the placenta, the cord blood was sent along with that check for $5,000+ on each of these children to a leading laboratory to see what did we find. And here's what we found. The environmentalworkinggroup.org is where you learn all this that I'm mentioning. When you want to convince your loved ones who may be worried about cancer and whose doctor is just going to give them another poison, chemo, and never pays any attention to this, go to EWG.org and find out what are the names. Where do we get this bisphenol A, and what is this dioxin and PCBs and polybrominated diphenyl ethers, and where does the lead, mercury, cadmium, where is it coming from, and what do they do to us? The chemicals found in every baby that his baby has been swimming in while it's in the mother's uterus, because no one tells the pregnant mother that you need to be on some oral detoxification whether it's fiber or vitamin C or garlic, whatever you can afford. If you could afford everything, you would be on zeolite and fiber and C and green and maca, and across the board you would be on the oral chelation. But we can't all afford everything. But we need to know, where do these problems start? Because if it's neurotoxin and your child can't learn, do you think giving another drug like Ritalin is solving anything? You have to realize that all of these illnesses that we're seeing are related to the toxins that are provably in you, because the children unfortunately concentrate because they're trying to grow so rapidly. They suck up every calorie because they're trying to grow overnight. And so they get more of the toxins than you. So the average baby and your child will have about 6 times the level of these things that you will have. So is there a good state to live in? Is there a place you can avoid all this? Well, if we just talk about lead, which is one of the... we do know that we've put into an environment 80,000 chemicals in the last couple of decades. We actually have data on 200 of these. And we know from the data that of the 200 that we're very concerned about bisphenol A and the flame retardant that we treated every child's pajamas in your mattresses with, the polybrominated diphenyl ethers and the dioxin, the PCB, and the vinyl chloride. We know the phthalates are in all of us, and we know that a lot of us don't have babies naturally anymore. We have to see a fertility specialist. So these MAP will be educational to you to find that, yes, but there is no place to escape to, because if you just measure in California, if you live in San Francisco, the ocean, across the ocean is coming, the burning of coal in China is giving us mercury, provably. That's why we're so worried about the mercury in the fish. It's because we burn coal to turn on electric lights. And with China growing as fast as it's growing, they're turning on far more coal than we do, and they are therefore putting more lead, mercury, cadmium, arsenic, and other toxins into the air, which have to come down. What goes up will come down. So air pollution, the American Heart Association is trying to tell you that the bad air is giving us heart disease and stroke. So this isn't just my hypothesis, even though some 38 years ago, when intravenous chelation turned me by the 8th treatment into Superman, and I could do things I could never do before, and so I've spent the next 38 years trying to figure out how can I help the millions of other people who may feel as unhealthy as I was for the first 30 years. And it obviously, if I can get the lead out, I'm doing you some good. There are obviously other toxins, and there's no one strategy, whether you live in a sauna every day, or you take so much fiber that you have 6 bowel movements a day, or you take 20 grams of vitamin C. No one thing can get all the bad stuff out, which is why we have BCI with 9 things in it, and we'll explain what those are. But to make you really pay attention to air pollution, I want to warn you that women have seen a 600% increase in lung cancer, 600% over the last decade, and we can show that half of them never smoked and don't even live with a smoker. So let's pay attention to air pollution and realize why I'm so passionate about having you do something. And if you could do nothing, some of us can't afford anything with this crazy economy, then go and spend time on my website, because I have put hour after hour of these webinars up with these kinds of slides, and knowledge is power. So if you knew which foods are the least poisonous, and by the way, CNN.com/Toxic America will show you how dangerous the strawberries and the grapes and even the apples have become, and that you're much safer with things like avocados. So if we look at this picture on the front page of Wall Street Journal a few weeks ago, a man is as old as his arteries. Well, people look at me at 75 and they say, you look like you're pretty young. But I had disabling angina at age 29, so how much plaque have you got? And can you measure it? Yes. We can tell you how old your blood vessels are in a simple visit that we put a little blood pressure cuff that's a very sensitive electronic device on the end of a finger, and it will accurately tell you if, even though you think you're 50, if your blood vessels are already as bad as a 70-year-old, maybe that will wake you up then, because all of us hate to go in a health food store and spend money or buy supplements from Longevity Plus or anybody else if we don't know we're getting a bang for the buck. And that's why testing is very useful, whether you have a family history that everybody in your family has ovarian cancer, breast cancer, and you're thinking you should have your breast cut off. You don't need to. If we detox you and put good things in, you don't have to worry about the bad genes, because the environment, which we can control with your diet and your exercise and positive thinking and relaxation and detoxing, I can control your environment, and that's 70% of the answer to anything. Genes are only at maximum 30%, so do not give up because you think that there's negative genes. And what we want you to know is that by age 70, this is yesterday's New York Times, and it tells you that at between age 70 and 79, we will find cancer in 18% of women and 23% of men. Now, in addition to that, we're going to have to admit that we're going to find high blood pressure in 67% of the women in that age group, heart disease in 27%. Look at these numbers, just add them up. If you take 37% of men have heart disease in that range, and 10% have stroke, now you're up to 47% of people have cardiovascular related disease. And then you put in diabetes, and why is diabetes a big deal? Because it kills the circulation to your eye, your kidney, and your toe. So, and you have many more heart attacks. So, even the diabetics, which we have 2 hours on my websites telling you that you can cure diabetes without a drug. You don't need to live on insulin. You're not learning that anywhere else. All this information is these webinars that I put together with great effort with the slides to show you who did the research, what's the documentation, and we know that we're going to have a lot of women with depression and these other things as we grow older. And what I'm very concerned about, and I want everybody to know, is I'm wanting to eliminate all of the problem of cognitive impairment. And we find that 19% of women have mild cognitive impairment in that age group, and 18% of men, whereas 7% are so severe that they're going to be in the nursing home, and 8% of the men. So I'm bringing this to your attention to have you understand that when you are bothering to spend your money to take BCI, or at least the best you can come trying to emulate what is in BCI, the more we have to have it know that this is a lifetime program. Although most people tell me within 2 weeks of being on BCI, they feel much better. I warn everybody that BCI, these 9 pills that Pastor Hinn has turned him into Superman, so he wears out his entire staff and he's nonstop. He's ever giving a lecture somewhere in the world almost every other day. These tablets have in it the primrose oil and the omega-3 and the phosphatidylserine ginkgo. Why phosphatidylserine and ginkgo? Because I am that worried about your cognitive impairment, and that's why we put this extra pill on top of the other one, because the 3 is where we spent the $10 million with Lester Morrison and proved that we could have a heparin-like effect that make aspirin and Coumadin and Plavix all unnecessary, particularly if you take the enzyme that I recommend, either nattokinase or Buluki, and 3 of them multiple, because I started out by saying you must have calcium and magnesium. You're going to need more vitamin D and folic acid and the omega-3. So everything I'm giving you is not just for the elimination of needless heart attacks. What I'm trying to do is to make sure you have a meaningful life and that you live to your maximum intended useful lifespan, having total use of all your faculties. Now, there's many minerals in these 3 multi-minerals, and I take that twice a day. If you only weigh 90 pounds and you're only 30 years of age, 1 package a day will be fine for women in Asia. But I find most of us in America are going to need 2, and if you already have a diagnosis of any form of heart disease, cancer, etc., you need to be on it twice a day. So if we look at this problem. The 3 books are available. You can go to Amazon and buy the book on arteriosclerosis prevention and reversal, or the book on coronary heart disease and mucopolysaccharide. Big word. That's a nice hint that it has heparin-like action. And heparin makes Coumadin and Plavix and aspirin look like a weak joke. But we found a way to make it out of the ocean in a algae-like material that we documented with the $10 million, all explained in this book by Lester Morrison. Anybody telling you that this is a figment of my imagination, and it couldn't be, that in America you really don't need to have your bypass or your stent, and you don't need the statins, and you don't want to be on aspirin. You know, I'm taking a very strong position, and I can do so because the intravenous treatment that I wrote, the entire program that has been used around the world to treat 10 million people, became into the oral program when Dr. Morrison spoke at the ACAM conference and said that he had reduced 91% heart attacks in 2 controlled studies, and he didn't have the EDTA in it, so I worked with him and we did the next step. So is aspirin as good as everybody? Yeah, have some aspirin in your house. If that's all you can afford, by all means, if you think you're having a heart attack, that is very useful at that point. If you think that just swallowing an aspirin, even a baby or whatever, or any brand or anything is going to really make a difference, the data is now showing that it has a negative influence if it's consumed daily. It is not the positive answer to everything we've been told, but it was the right idea. We don't want to have blood clots, and so we want platelets that aren't sticky, and we want an anticoagulant. But I do that with the garlic, and I do it with the omega-3, and I do it with the oral chelation, and I put it all together so I do no harm, because 3,000 people a year actually die of a little problem called a heart attack. And if we look at the 3,000 people really dying because of a problem which we have of bleeding to death when we're taking aspirin. So aspirin's not the friendly savior we thought it was. And now I'm going to have to go back a little bit because I'd missed a slide here, and we're going to come down again and we'll get into where we were. So here is the current thing that we have coming up, and what I want everybody to understand is that we all have vascular disease, and we're going to live longer. And so it's either spend the money now. That's my big point, is if you get useful things now, yes, you'll spend money every month of your life. But look at the facts. Most people spend about 75% of the money that's ever spent on their health care is spent in the last year of life when it's too late and it's doing too little. So the multiple that we have given you has got more in it than any multiple you will find in the store, including cesium and rubidium and tocotrienols and resveratrol and vitamin K2 and across the line the C minerals. So when we put this together, it was the intention that it would BAM, stands for beyond. It's more than any of the other multiples that you find on the market. And what is resveratrol? Well, resveratrol is very exciting stuff, and it's not going to be a reason to drink 100 glasses of wine a day. You don't need that. 100 milligrams is plenty for the resveratrol, but there will be a lot of additional research in this area, as well as in the area of tocotrienols, which is a very active group that are abundant in plant oils that actually do things that vitamin E itself doesn't do, including protect your brain. Because remember, I'm very concerned that you will not remember my phone number when you're 75 and 85 and 90, and that's why I want to protect the brain. And of course, we'll get more into cancer. I will be doing upcoming webinars in the very near future on detoxification, and then one on cancer, and then we'll get into other topics from autism to diabetes and weight loss, etc. But I need to have you know that I'm trying to make sure you have accurate and useful information so that these are part of what you get when you take those 9 pills. Now, vitamin K2, I have to put it in a separate tablet for people who have already been told their bones are very weak. By age 50, 1 out of 2 women have osteopenia or osteoporosis and must take the K2 in a separate pill along with the short-term use of strontium and a lifetime use of a natural form of an estrogen-related substance called Pueraria mirifica. Pueraria mirifica, what is that? That's miracle molecule. And what is it called? Longevity Plus calls it HRT, herbal remedy from Thailand. But if we get you to understand that the K2 is in the 9 pills because you need it from day one. So we're trying to put some, but it gets very expensive. You can't get all that I need into the 3 multiple tablets, so you will need more vitamin D. I'll have to have you take some more iodine, even though we have kelp. There are things that because of how polluted our world has become, that even though I have a safety net that I put under you when you take your 9 pills, as you get more into what I'm teaching, if you want to have full use of all your faculties and no broken bones and no cancers, I will be going higher in strength and adding more things. But I have enough in the 9 pills to change your life, because I haven't had a phone call of a fatal heart attack or fatal stroke in patients year after year after year who are lucky enough to know about this. So the trace minerals are part of it. Cesium and rubidium and things that are put in those 3 multiples, because you know that we've actually washed all the good stuff from our soil is going to wind up in the ocean. So we have made it possible in this multiple for you to get things that are not in any other multiple. And the essential daily defense is where you get the garlic and the niacin. By the way, niacin alone is far better than any of the statins they're giving people. It's better studied, and even the government has done all the studies on it, but I put and add to it across the thing from betaine to the carrageenan to papain. I have added to this the EDTA. I've added to it specifically D-L-methionine because I want to get mercury out of your body. So there's a reason that there's all these ingredients in these 3 special pills, which I have some people that really want to detox take extra jars of this in addition to the 3 that are in your packet. That Pastor Hen gets that packet morning and night. But if you have history of knowing the doctor has measured you and you have higher levels than are desirable in lead, mercury, cadmium, arsenic, and or a history of previous blood clot, people are often taking an extra 3, 6, or 9 of these a day in addition to the 2 packets. This is where the $10 million of Lester Morrison's was so greatly improved when we added the EDTA that instead of taking a heaping tablespoon of a dry, hard-to-take powder, we were able to get it down to these capsules so that when you read the books about his research, the exciting thing was that EDTA in these pills, there is in each pill, there's 133 milligrams, so when you get 3, you're getting 400 milligrams of EDTA. When I give you EDTA intravenously, and we charge you about $120 to $150 for intravenous, we give you $3,000. So it's totally safe. I have patients that have been on this for well over 20 years, and they just get better each year because when all their friends are getting sicker, they're not getting the toxins out. And garlic, we have shown studies, the Wakanuga brand called Kyolic has spent the money to do studies with documentation that they are reversing, you heard the word, reversing coronary artery disease. So don't be brainwashed when they try to trick you because you have a little chest pain. They say, oh, you need an angiogram. You don't need an angiogram. No one needs an angiogram. It isn't hard to diagnose heart disease. We have an easy test. It is painless. It's called premierheart.com, and we can prove to you how much heart disease you have, and you don't need to be putting dye inside your body that can lead these guys selling you heart surgery because they tell you got plaque. Well, everybody's got plaque. And if garlic alone, across the board, you have many choices. In the 9 pills, when you get your 9 pills, you're getting methylsulfonomethane. It's an incredible building block of sulfur. It protects so many parts of your body, from your bones and joints to your brain, and helps the detoxification. And then malic acid, that's the good stuff that's in apples. And it is part of the citric acid. It's part of the energy cycle, but it's another chelator. And betaine hydrochloride, you wish you could learn much more about this because it is so sad. We have so many people being poisoned by drugs like Nexium, which is getting given to them because they thought their stomach's hurting because they believe they have too much acid. By taking away the acid, they won't absorb any minerals and they'll lose their bones. So it's better to learn from my webinars exactly why you need to be on acidophilus, why you need to stop eating foods that you're allergic to so often. Stopping dairy or gluten alone stops much of the pain. So I don't want people doing bad things with drugs. I got to give you knowledge, which is why the cheapest thing you can do is spend a few hours going back to school, and I've made it all available through my website. It says, watch these webinars. It lists every webinar. There's about 20 of them now, whether you want to learn about cancer or you want to learn about slowing down the aging or whatever you want to, diabetes, 2 full hours, what food to eat. Because remember, my FIGHT program, F-I-G-H-T, was just an acronym to remind you that if I don't deal with your food, the F, the infection, we have proof today that everybody has infection in the stuff that grows on our arteries like cytomegalic virus. So we have many of you taking silver. But F-I-G, G is the genetics. And because we have so much of the phthalates, the plasticizer with the bisphenol A, that we change our body's ability to actually methylate. And methylation is a key step in detoxification. So that's why I give you betaine chloride, which is one trick. But now we will actually teach you to use sublingual B12, which has in it 3 forms of folic acid, far more powerfully. But I can keep everybody out of the hospital. I never get a phone call from an emergency room that my patient's in there with a heart attack. It's so nice to sleep at night. No phone calls from somebody having a stroke. So it's great that we have something that works. But now we have to teach you how we're going to get the mercury out, because everybody has lead, has mercury. Where did it come from? The burning of coal. Can you get it out? Yes, garlic helps. So does the oral chelation that we'll teach you more about, and the zeolite that we can add to this oral chelator, and the fiber, and the green, and the maca. But the beta-sitosterol, that is found in high levels, actually in the Beyond Fiber, and it is another major step in helping prevent colon cancer, avoiding gallstones, and controlling cholesterol, and even helping the prostate stay healthier in men. All of these are things that are in the 9 package of pills. Carrageenan, that's where we were able to find our natural alternative to heparin in the ocean, and we did some special things to it so that in the presence of EDTA, it is responsible for, knock on wood, me not having any phone calls about a fatal heart attack in all these years, because when you added the EDTA, it replaced for my patients the aspirin, the Coumadin, even those patients who have serious problems. Papain, horsetail. The horsetail is silica. Silica is part of giving you strong bones. And the red yeast rice. And across the board, there are so many things that we have put in those 9 pills. So the hawthorn, Crataegus oxycanthus, it has been used for 1,000 years in helping the heart. It comes as an herb and it comes as a homeopathic. We have the homeopathic. I wrote the book. I introduced the omega-3 to the American population with an infomercial, which I've done several years, and now it's being added to all the foods. I was the first one to really popularize the omega-3. It was been a key part of my program. I have to have answers if I cancel your bypass, and if the big university says you're going to heart attack waiting to happen. I not only give you the omega-3, but I balance it with the evening primrose, which is so important on preventing things like asthma and eczema, and in balancing your body from many directions. And so phosphatidylserine, I make the joke that it's in those 9 pills along with the ginkgo, because I want to make sure that when you're 80 and 90 you still remember how to call to get your next packet of Beyond Chelation, because you will not ever grow out of the need of a good nutrient going in and bad things going out. So phosphatidylcholine is in the program, and the ginkgo biloba by itself, they kind of laugh at it and say, oh, it doesn't do that much. It is a key part. That was the synergy. That was how Lester Morrison spent the $10 million that took him some 10 years with a whole team of people at Loma Linda, Arteriosclerosis Research Institute, to find out that ginkgo was a key thing along with the phosphatidylserine, but that had to work along with the niacin. We needed all of these things in order to eliminate the heart attacks. And it's exciting to tell people that because we're all very concerned today about these infections, whether it's Lyme disease that we're worried about, or we're worried about the epidemic of hepatitis C or any of the things, because in everybody tested according to Harvard Medical School, we're going to find cytomegalic virus. And it will help you develop that hypertension that you noticed I showed you in the initial slides, that by the time we get up to 70 to 79 years of age, 67% of women have high blood pressure, 65% of men, but they now know there's a viral component, which is why we have a total body detox that combines zeolite in a separate jar with silver. And why the silver? Because it does miraculous things about lowering the total body burden of fungi, bacteria, and virus. But this article I'm showing you was mainly to tell you that I can't give you enough vitamin C in the 9 pills to do all the magic that vitamin C can do. So since I am really deeply involved in the vitamin C research, and I know all the papers, the books, I have all the references on my website, if you begin to understand that adding vitamin C as part of what I call my power drink enhances the detoxification so that the 9 pills doesn't have to do everything, because I really want you to look good and feel good when you're 80 and 90. And so the point that we're making here is that you can, when you talk to Longevity Plus at 800-580-7587, Longevity Plus will tell you that they would love to have you get a little stick called VitaCheck. Why would we spend your money to get a little piece of paper that's got a little green color on the tip of this little stick? It's because we want you to test your urine. Because I can tell you at this point that if you test your family and your loved ones and your children and your grandkids, whatever, anybody that stays at the dark green color is never going to have optimal health, because they do not have enough C to deal with the level of stress and toxins that is in their body. So what we teach you is that we teach you with this little thing. It don't cost you $10 to get 50 tests. That's 20 cents a test. And that way you can check yourself on a Saturday night and on a Monday morning, and you can be sure that you always stay in the bright yellow color, because that means you have enough C leaving your body to help take toxins out. And that why is all this important? Because they know at NIH that high enough doses of vitamin C can reduce the size of many cancers. And it does that only when you have really serious amounts of vitamin C getting inside of your cells. And it turns out that mostly the vitamin C's that you get until now, this is the most expensive vitamin C delivery system ever devised. It was devised for me because of my bad health. We're glad to share it with you, and we can tell you that all the cancer clinics love using it. So that's the Bioenergy C. That is the little jar of sticks, and this is the green color. You don't want your family. If your wife has cancer and she urine tested this, she's not going to respond to any treatment they sell her. And most of the time what they sell her for chemo, if you look at the facts published, they're lucky to get 2 weeks or maybe a month or two of additional lifespan, but they get $50,000 of you or your insurance company or your fellow taxpayers' money, but you didn't cure the cancer. And so all I'm into, I don't have the cure for all cancers, but I have actual data that we can show you that non-toxic approaches are working at least 3 to 5 times better than the treatment you're being sold when it's covered by your insurance, because it's so-called FDA approved, which means little or nothing. Being FDA approved means it's slightly better than placebo. So the book I wrote, the Omega-3, the chelation answer, you can still get on the website at There's still plenty of copies, and it was when I first wrote that some almost 20 years ago, to get the references in front of people, because I was training doctors, and as I said, we now have $29 million from Uncle Sam, the trial to assess chelation therapy, TACT, and then I had to write a book to convince you that it doesn't have to be in the vein, we can do it in the oral, so that you'd get the references and know how much. There's 509 references on my website about the oral. So this is the big jar that has in it the 30 packets, and when you open it, you take a packet, ideally morning and night, and then you're getting all the benefits that we have talked about. And what we want you to be knowledgeable about is, how can I have a free school, or 2 schools, or 3 schools that can get more information into your brain? Now, my site for the doctors is FACT. There's no charge. They go to my website, Gordon Research. They scroll down and they join FACT, and they get a password, and they can see everything we've written about Lyme, everything we've written about diabetes, everything we've written about breast cancer. It's all there. Now I'm in the process of trying to move and migrate that, because the doctors talk to each other, and that's their personal site, to move that over for a site for the public, and that will be Fight for Your Health. In addition to that, we want you to know that when you go to lymebook.com/fight, we have a blog where people can talk and ask questions about, are you really getting over your Lyme? What are you doing with autism, etc. So that's kind of a nice way to go. And then, because nobody in this country has paid any attention to Zeolite, I put up a website, Zeolite Answer, where there's thousands of papers and references. You couldn't run the world without Zeolite. In fact, a handbook of Zeolite science and technology is edited by the 3 editors of the American Chemical Society, and a single article in that book is available on my website at no cost. The textbook is $250. But the Chapter 24 medical application of Zeolite, because the 2 sides of the coin are very simple. I have to teach you to put good stuff in and bad stuff out. But the parent place is, you go into the little search area and you put in the word breast cancer or mercury or lead or chelation or heart disease on my website, and that's where you can start to have answers. And the answers that I want are to have you know that exercise, which I couldn't do like many of you because I was too sick to get out of bed. But when you start somewhere, this is not an overnight program. You will see a difference in a week or 2 as I start to neutralize the toxins, but I can't possibly get them all out because you were born with 1,000 times too much lead in bone, and bone takes in adults 15 years to remodel. So for 15 years, if you're really good, and you do my Fight program and you learn all this stuff, you will have lower and lower levels, and you can't prove it without spending the $5,000 sending your blood to Mount Sinai School of Medicine. But you'll know it when you start not having the hypertension, the heart disease, the diabetes, the stroke, the memory loss, the cancer, and the problems of weak bones and bone fractures and joints that won't let you walk around the block anymore. So with that, I thank you for your attention, and I will turn it over to the moderator, and then first we can do some questions and answers. It looks like we got questions already. So let's see if I can see some of these questions. Somebody saying, I have to say I've used Beyond Chelation for a long time. I love it. Wants to know more about the BioClip. The BioClip, if you put in the word bioclip.com, BIOCLIP.com, you can learn all about it. Any doctor could buy the BioClip. If you want to know more about getting the heart test that will save you and your husband and your family, because we don't have to have these silly guys put us in the hospital and put a dye up inside of us to tell us how much junk is on our arteries. We all have junk on the arteries. Is it significant or not? That's the only question. And if it's significant, all you have to do is get on my program and it will become insignificant. And so that's called premierheart.com. Or if you're worried because of cancer, you use the cancer test that we will talk about in great length in future webinars. But it's called U-Test-U. That's YOUTestYOU.com or caprofile.net. And those are places that we measure the cancer website and tell people exactly how much cancer tendency they have. So we would like to make it very clear that the cholesterol, I don't care if your cholesterol is familial and you have extremely high levels, we have natural products that lower cholesterol and lower triglycerides. I have not talked in here about carnitine, and I have not talked in here about just how much lowering of cholesterol we get with the detox program, because the detox program is based on my power drink, and my power drink is the maca, which is the turnip family, and therefore you want to mask the taste because a lot of people don't like the taste of maca, but it does have a real benefit in that it clearly keeps people feeling sexier far longer, and it does it because it is part of a glucosinolate family, which does like the diindolylmethane that's in broccoli, and it neutralizes some of the estrogen mimics that are in our bodies today.